Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meirav Samet, and as Peter said, I'm the head of the operation branch in the Israeli Fire and Rescue Authority. With your permission, I will start with a few words about the authority, just to let you know a bit about us. So the Israeli Fire and Rescue Authority was established only in 2013, and that was following the Carmel fire, which cost the lives of 44 people. That was the first time we started working as an authority and not as a ministry. Each city has its own fire department, and we're composed of 7 districts, and you can see here the main challenges. I'm sure it's not very different from every country that we see. We have the mass transit, the trains, all the old buildings that we saw the fires in earlier performance. We have the underground level that brings many challenges to us, the high rise. The point of public awareness is a very important subject, because we understand that once we'll give the public the knowledge and the understanding of how to deal with the fire and how to assure that the fire won't start, the awareness will reduce the number of fires we'll have to deal with. We have the natural disaster, and something that's probably a bit unique, unfortunately, we have the military activities that brings along a few challenges for us as first responders. As I said earlier, we have 7 districts from the north to the south, and the headquarters are in Rishon LeZion, just near Tel Aviv. We have, as to 2020, 122 fire stations. Looking forward to 2023, we want to see 194 stations, and that's, of course, in order to give a better service and to reach the fire as fast as we can. We have many rural areas in Israel, and today we look forward to placing a fire station, which in 7 minutes we can reach to the fire. So in order to build those 194, we see the rise in all the zones. We see the rise in firefighters, in fire trucks, all around, in order to give those 194 stations the ability to serve the public. You can see here that in 1 year, we deal with about 70,000 occasions, which divide into hazmat, rescue, and fires. We have more than 100,000 calls above this. So we deal with around 200 calls a year that we respond to eventually. And now to the subject that I want to talk with you today, a very interesting one. And there comes the main question: is the firefighters' own safety versus the mission of saving life? Is there a dilemma? Some can say there is, some can say there isn't. And I would like to share you a couple of events that happened here in the past 2 years, and maybe start to talk about, is there a dilemma or is there not? The first case I would like to share with you is a fire where 2 children lost their lives. I will start with a phone call. Here in Israel, what we know as 911 is 102, the fire department number. And you can mostly hear the screams, but to translate you what the scream says, it says, Sharabi Street, the children, the house is on fire. And I would like to let you hear the screaming in order to go from there to the case. So let's hear it. So that was the phone call. The father called 102 and screamed, the children are burning, the house is burning. And bearing that in mind, those screaming that they heard, the first crew goes out to save lives. The fire started Friday afternoon here in Israel, around 2-3 on Friday afternoon. Everyone is relaxing. The streets go to a sort of a sleep. There are not much cars on the street. The mother was preparing the Sabbath dinner, and she had 6 children playing around a small house. Now, if you all can see this picture here to my left, That was the house. Now, normally we all can see maybe there is a one family, two families, but at this specific house, there were 6 different families living in this house, and it was divided inside in a way that us, as the first respondent, cannot know where is the entrance. And so you can see here, that's the kitchen where the mother was preparing the meal, and 2 of her children, David was aged 5, and his brother Moses was aged 3. They were playing at the back room over here. Now, as I told you, this apartment was not built legally. It didn't have any windows. And so once the fire started over here, the children didn't have where to run. There was no window to open or no door to run to. And so the first one that arrived at the scene were the battalion and firefighter. Once he saw the fires and the flames coming out, he just ran into the fire without taking his oxygen mask, without waiting for any backup or for water line, and just started running into the apartment. Now, as you can all see, everything was burned by the time he got in, but what he saw in his eyes was the mission that there are 2 children burning at this place, and he just went in and tried to rescue them. At the first minutes, as you all can see here, that's his clothes. It's all burned, but he just kept on running inside the house. He took out the children in the cost of his own injury, and unfortunately, we could not save them. The 2 children were pronounced dead, and the firefighter had to receive medical care at the site and was sent to the hospital. So that is the first case where we can see that the rules or what we taught them was not safely dealt with. And now I'll show you another case. This one is a bit different. We're talking about a truck crew that was called to an apartment fire. And they were over here, that's the building. There were 14 people trapped inside the burning building. Here you can see it, of course, afterwards. And as the crew was entering the street, they saw that there was a roadblock and they are not able to reach the building with their truck. And from a distance of about 550 meters, they just stopped the car. And one of the firefighters started running. He knew there were people trapped in the building. He knew there was one boy that was unaccounted for because his mother phoned and said she cannot find her son. Knowing that, they just ran into the building. We can see here from this window, he entered the room with no self-safety measurements and just took up the boy and took him out to the medical care. And again, unfortunately, here also, the child was pronounced dead and the firefighter needed medical care. So that's 2 cases when we see that once the firefighters know that there are trapped people or there are children trapped in the apartment, often they just run into the fire and they don't stop for a minute to think about themselves, to think about the measurements they need to take. And in a moment, I will show you, is that what we teach them? Do we teach them just to run straight into the fire? Obviously not. And yet we see cases more and more that once people are involved, when lives are involved, the firefighters often see the mission much more than they see their own safety. And the third case I would like to share with you is one to show us that not every time it's very heroic. You know, when we say that the firefighter ran straight into the fire to save a child, there's something very heroic in it. But this accident that I would like to share with you here ended up very badly. And it was a truck crew that was called to a field fire. And at that point, when they were called, the fire did not risk not lives or property. And the crew started their ride. And at a certain point, one of the firefighters, as he's used to, took off his safety belt in order to put on his mask and get ready. So once they'll get into the fire, he can straight ahead run into the fire. Remember, we're talking about a field fire, no danger to people, no trapped people, just field burning up. And he, at that point, when he took off his safety belt, the driver took a very fast turn to the right, and that firefighter was pushed into the door. And unfortunately, at that time, the door opened, and the firefighter was thrown into the pavement and got a very bad head injury. As we all can see here on the right, that's where he landed on the pavement. We can see the blood marks. And unfortunately, he was sent to the hospital with that head injuries, and he didn't return to the station by today. And hopefully he'll return in a couple of months. So was the decision to take off his safety belt right? Was the mission worth it? Let's talk about it. So do we teach them at the academy and at the station to always run? No, we teach them and we tell them that one's own safety is very critical. It's critical to ensure best performance here and now, but in the future as well. Because if today the firefighter won't take the measurements needed to secure himself and he'll get injured, he will stay at home sick, and that would mean giving less service to the people because we have one less firefighter. And tomorrow there's going to be a big fire and we're going to need every firefighter. So we tell them time and time again that they must understand that their own safety is very crucial for the mission. And that's how we want them to see in order for us to be able to give the service to the people. We teach them techniques. Every day we practice, from the base training that they get to the course in the academy. And every day when they're training at the station, every week we have a list of techniques that we teach them. And we hope that once we train those techniques, the firefighters will automatically, in the first few minutes, will do what's needed to be done for saving their own safety, for their own safety. And what do we mean by that? We mean take the few minutes to wear their oxygen mask. They cannot breathe once running into the fire. They won't be able to save anyone. Put on your mask. Take the thermic camera in order for you to be able to go into the fire and know where the fire is going, know how heat it is. That will give you measurements so you can plan your attack. Never go on alone. Never go in without your partner. We tell them that day and day, never go without a backup. If something will happen to you and you went in without a backup, no one will know. You need that backup. And of course, make sure there's the water line to help you turn off the fire. And those 4 measurements are taught over and over in every investigation, in every course we make them, time and time along the way, from basic training to officer training. We tell them, keep those 4 measurements in order to keep your life, in order to keep yourself safety. Now, do they do that always? Well, obviously, we saw they don't. And I would like to share with you now a couple of lines from the Israeli Firefighter Oath, and then I will make an integration between the 2 things. So it goes like that. Give me the strength and power to overcome the fire. That's their mission. That's their basic mission. Help me save that little boy. That's the little boy that we heard the father screaming, come save him, before it will be too late. And unfortunately, many times we know they're dead before we even arrived. Or save the elder when the fire is held. Give me, God, the strength. They want the strength to run into the fire to save. That's their mission. And the most strong line in this oath that might clarify a bit about when we ask if there is a dilemma or there isn't, my will is strong. Every firefighter, once he takes this oath, his will is strong. And he knows that if he'll have to give his life, he will give his life. And the only request they have is to save their families after that. So reading the oath and seeing many, many cases in which firefighters run straight into the fire, yes, most of the time we talk about fires that children are involved or that people are involved and they're screaming and there's a lot of pressure around. The firefighters want to go straight into the fire here in Israel. That's how they're raised from the beginning. Even if we try to teach them that their own safety is the most important, to bring them back home. But we see time after time that once they upon the mission, they do not always keep the rules, and they want to save their lives. That's their mission in life. And I will ask again, if in the case of that firefighters that was thrown out of the truck, was it worth it? Couldn't it have been waited until they arrived to the field and then took off his belt? Probably, yes. So it's not always so heroic. And we do expect them to think, and we do expect them to do an assessment before running straight into the fire. But since I wasn't a firefighter, they would tell, it's easy for you to say. You never fronted the fire. And once we see the fire, we go. And I had many conversations with the firefighters about it. And that's something that it's raised upon them, the obligation and the importance of saving life is something that it's very, very strong in them. And so just a minute before I'll finish, I'll go ask again the question. Is there a dilemma? We can say there is. And when we're rationalized, we say, yes, there is a dilemma. But maybe once we look to the fire in the eyes, we hear the screams of the parents, we see the children, maybe there isn't a dilemma, something to talk about. And I think we won't get the right answer. Everyone can have his own truth, but I can say I'm very proud of our firefighters that are taking the mission of saving lives and protecting as their own life. And for me, that means we're giving the best service to the people here in Israel. So thank you very much for everyone for listening to me and for the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you.